Welcome, everybody. We're here for the first episode of the Primetime Sports Show where we're making sports talk great again. Our first guest today is Reg Bonin of the Lively Hawks from Sudbury, and our second guest will be Tom Annett from the Korah Colts. How are you today, Reg?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Like I say, if it wasn't for the first thing is, if it wasn't for our sponsors, we wouldn't be doing stuff like this. So just give me a second. Let me give a shout out to her, and then we'll go from there. Ladies and gentlemen, our Primetime Sports Show today is brought to you by Cheryl Robinson of Expedia Cruise Ship Center of Sault Ste Marie. Remember, there's no shortage of selection to choose from with her. Find your next vacation and destination. Discover all your amazing corners of the world when you're sitting and visiting with Cheryl Robinson of Expedia Cruise Ship Centers.ca. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and we wouldn't be able to do this without you. So Reg, can you talk a little bit about your final before we get into the nuts and bolts of NOSSA this weekend?
Sure. We played St. Ben's. St. Ben's arguably had the best passing game in the city this year. They have a tremendous quarterback in Adam Roca, who just was able to whip the ball around the field. They had a couple really outstanding receivers and a solid O-line that gave them time. So we knew we had our hands full going into that game. Their defense has progressively been getting better throughout the year. So we knew we were in tough. We came a little bit flat first half. We didn't play our best football. Our defense really did a great job of keeping us in the game. They were giving up some yardage, but not giving up that big play. We were quite pleased when we got into halftime, tied 7-7. Second half, we started to move the ball with a little more consistency. We scored a touchdown. We started to force turnovers on defense, and our defense, returned a fumble for a touchdown, and that pretty much sealed the deal for us.
And you're coming into Sault Ste. Marie this weekend on the 3rd, and biggest thing in the north, we don't know if it's going to be rain, snow, sleet, or what it's going to be. But
absolutely. The last time we were up in the Sioux was for a junior NOSSA game against Korah, and we probably played in a foot of snow. It was memorable, absolutely.
Was that the one with the three foot snowbanks around the football field?
Oh yeah. That game will forever be ingrained in my memory.
I was one of the ones shoveling just to keep the lines open, so I remember that. And I was talking to a couple of seniors the other day on Korah, and they said they were remembering the ice chunks on the field.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny because our victory lap kids this year, I think we have 4 of them who played in that game, so they remember it vividly.
At least it was turf, not grass, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I was impressed. You guys let us play on that field, and here in Sudbury, the city would have shut us down. So it was pretty eye opening for us, where it's like, oh my God, we can use the rubber field and not get kicked off of it when the elements are against us.
Yeah, and the rubber field's a little bit more beneficial than when you're hitting frozen ground. It's like hitting a wall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A little more forgiving.
Yeah. The first thing, and I'm not asking any secrets, but what's it going to take to beat the Colts on Saturday afternoon in Sault Ste. Marie?
You know what? We have to be good. We know Korah's a really good team. They ran the table this year. They have the most outstanding player. I believe they have the defensive player of the year on their team, the lineman of the year on their team. So they are an outstanding football team. So, we got to come out. We got to play good, clean football. We can't turn the ball over. We have to tackle. We have to block, take care of all our fundamentals. And our coaches have to put together a good game plan, and the kids have to come together and execute it on Saturday. Like, I know it's a lot of cliche stuff, but once we get to this level, that's what it's going to take.
Now, for this season, what has impressed you the most of this season heading into NOSSA Semi Final with your team coming into Sault Ste. Marie?
I really like the resolve of our guys. We have a small school here. We've got 270 kids. So often we don't get that luxury of size or speed that some of the other schools here in Sudbury have. But what we lack of in size is we've got a ton of grit. Our kids are willing to run through walls. They are tough as nails. So I love the way they come to work. we lost our starting running back early in training camp, and we didn't miss a beat. The kid just said, hey, that's football. Sometimes stuff happens, and you just got to keep playing. I like that we've been tested this year in a bunch of close games. We won one game with about a minute and a half with a late field goal. I like that we had to come from behind in our semifinal game to give us an opportunity to play for the championship. So I like the way that our teams dealt with adversity this year.
And I know we struggle here in Sault Ste. Marie. One of our schools sometimes puts a team on the field like White Pines and then can't finish because of numbers. Now, with having that small of an enrollment, does that hurt a program?
You know what? I don't know what's happened, like how it works out, but like the kids here are phenomenal. We run both a junior team and a senior team. Our junior team consistently has 35 guys on the team. Our senior team, we're consistently in the low 30s. Sometimes some year, like last year, we were in the 40s. So it's a lot of fun. We know as a coaching staff, we have to work really hard at keeping the kids engaged. We can't turn away a young grade 9 kid who might not look the part as a football player because we know we have to develop him, because for all we know, that kid may be starting for us when he's in grade 12, because we just don't have that luxury of saying, hey, this guy looks like a better football player. So I commend our coaching staff. They do a great job of developing every kid that comes into our building and chooses to come out and play.
And that says something about the school community when you have 1/4 of your enrollment dressing for football, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And to add to that, like our girls flag football team has, some 30, 35 girls playing, which is phenomenal.
So again, for Lively, and when people don't know, I guess it's easy to explain for people who don't know, it's almost like a suburb of Sudbury, right?
Yeah. We're about, a 20-minute drive to downtown Sudbury. So we're a nice little small community, and we're quite content to be annoying for the big schools in town.
And that's and for the kids, that's huge, right? When it comes to, we were talking off camera about bigger schools, and everybody has their own little area in Sudbury, and that's for you guys, for only 200 some odd students. That's huge for a team, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I started working here, that was probably my biggest challenge, was just to change that mentality of the kids were very down on the fact that, I go to Lively, it's not one of the big L schools in Sudbury, and now it's they're proud of being at this school. They're proud to compete against those schools, and they're proud to beat them. So I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to do here. And so far, do you think your guys have lived up to their potential so far going into NOSSA this weekend? You know what? If you were ask my guys, they'd probably tell you no. And the reason I say that is that we've played well at times, but we haven't put together a full 48 minutes of football. We've either looked really good on offense, but we've had defensive lapses or special team lapses, or, defense has played really well and our O hasn't, which is good. It means that we're, as a group, we know that we can count on each other. If the offense isn't plugging away, well, then the defense will carry us, which is a nice thing to have on a team. That being said, you know what? We know that we're always getting better, and we feel like we're playing our best football right now, which is what you want to be doing at the end of a season, is peaking. So, I feel that's where we're heading.
And I've said about coaching in the past is, no matter how many games you play in that season, playoffs is a totally different animal, don't you find? Oh,
absolutely. And that's often a challenge with high school kids is to get them to understand that, look, regular season, you can be 5-0, you can be, it's meaningless once you get to the playoff game. You could have beat a team, like we beat St. Charles this year, 36-6, I believe, in the regular season, and we were losing to them at halftime this year in a playoff game. So it's to keep the guys focused and on task, and just not looking ahead or not taking someone for granted. And that's that's always a challenge when working with teenagers.
And that's the thing. When it comes to teenagers, you have school. That's their main priority. And then part-time jobs and girlfriends or boyfriends. And it's something like, say, as a coach, you're dealing with all that on top of trying to work with them every week to get them better, right?
Yeah. So, for us this year, like we were fortunate. We were fortunate to repeat this year. Last year we played North Bay and Sudbury. We lost 14-0, and we felt like we let that one slip away. We had 3 opportunities to go up 21-0 in the first 6 minutes of the game, and we just didn't capitalize, and it came back to bite us, especially in 3-down ball. When you have the short field and you force those turnovers that give you the short field, you need to score, and we let those opportunities slip away. And ultimately we lost 14-0. And our guys, there's about 15 guys returning from that team last year who feel that way, and they feel that we can compete at the NOSSA level, which is for me as a coach, it'll make my life a lot easier, because I'm not going to have to pump the tires up for these guys to say, look, we can play. They know they can play at this level right now. So already, we after our game on Friday, the kids were already starting to talk about, hey, who are we playing next? Do we know who won in the Sioux? Let's go, which is, a completely different mindset than what we had last year.
And the way technology is today and stuff like that, a lot of times you can get game film, sometimes you can't. We're not that far apart. We're only about 3.5 hours difference, but not really knowing a team. How do you prepare for your opponent going into NOSSA?
That's a challenge. I've experienced that when coaching summer ball, where sometimes you go into games completely blind. For us, as it's all hands on deck. We go online. We Google news articles. We try to find out who the top guys are. We try to give that name to a number, so that way we have something to work with. We go on YouTube and we see, hey, sometimes kids put out highlight videos, and that's something that we may get to see a couple of their formations and say, okay, we know that here are a couple of things that they like to do, or if for example, last year when we played North Bay, we saw that their quarterback was phenomenal on the film, and that he threw a beautiful deep ball. Well, that changed the way we prepared for our NOSSA game, right? Knowing that, hey, you're going to be playing an elite quarterback, you kind of have to account for that. So we ask our coaches to ask around. Hey, do you know someone who lives in the Sioux? Like we're trying to do anything we can to find any kind of information.
And that's the big thing is every sport, like you say, when it comes to amateur sports, you do age out eventually. So it's something, again, for the kids who are in grade 12 or back for the graduation, like say, or their last hurrah for the 5th year, it's something you want to get to. OFSA is the main goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And Sudbury football, we haven't done a good job of that in the last 25, 30 years. Like there was a long stretch we didn't even compete at the NOSSA level. And I do find over the last, since I've been here at Lively, I do find the gap is closing. Like we're a lot more competitive with the North Bay teams and the Sioux teams. And for a lot of coaches here, that's our main objective. We're getting a lot better in this community, working together as coaches to say, hey, you guys played these guys last year. What was the experience like? What was the reffing like when you played over there? All those conversations where, 10, 15 years ago when I started working here, that wasn't the case. We were very much on our own when we, moved beyond cities.
And that talks about, like, say, cities. Your cities ended Friday, same as Sault Ste. Marie's. Mm-hmm. Up until then, nobody wants to really talk to each other. But as a Saturday morning, because the Hawks are representing Sudbury, they're like, okay, we'll help you a little bit now to hopefully bring the title back to the city, right?
Absolutely. Like, Sudbury and the Sioux have great traditions of rivalry going back to the Spartans and the Steelers, like those.
And just not football either.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. So and it goes the same thing with Sudbury, North Bay, or I'm sure Sault Ste. Marie and North Bay. Like, that's Northern Ontario. This will give us bragging rights.
And that's one of the biggest things for as a coach, like at a high school high school level, bragging rights is the biggest thing. And as a coach from Sudbury, if you could return to Sudbury with 200 some odd students beating a school like Korah, it would be huge for football in Lively, but also in Sudbury, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever we get together for our coaches meetings, that's usually the first thing that comes up is are we doing it? Are we closing this gap? Which is what we're trying to do here. That I think, a positive thing that's happening in Sudbury is there's a purpose here. We're trying to close that gap.
And we had talked off camera before we started about you guys coming up here a few years ago for the junior team, about playing in I guess we call it the Ice Bowl, and and coming for playing NOSSA on the road. Does it change your style of play or your approach on coaching coming on the road compared to playing at home?
At the end of the day, like, a football field in Sudbury is going to be the same as a football field in the Sioux, right? It's 110 yards plus end zones and however wide the field is. So it won't change our game of style of play that much. It may change, weather will have a bigger impact on that. And like you mentioned earlier, they might be forecasting sun today, but for all we know, we're going to have a monsoon on Saturday. So I think weather will have a bigger impact. For us, I think I like the idea of the road game. I think it's going to bring our guys together. Nothing like going out into I don't want to say a hostile environment, but an unfamiliar environment.
Playing Korah will be hostile, and they'll probably say something to me about that. But
yeah, but we like the idea of being the underdog. We like the idea that for years that's how we played football here, because we were the underdog, because you line us up, we're going to be the smaller team, and we have to overcome that, and our guys crave that. So I think that's when we're at our best, is when we're when we're in that hostile environment. Our guys look forward to it. And
when it comes to, and not asking secrets, but when it comes to players, is there 2 or 3 players that you rely on, or will be relying on this Saturday?
Well, absolutely. Like we know that you guys, have the Korah has the most outstanding player, number 2. I forget his name, but there's a few guys that we know are going to be key guys for Korah. I'm sure those guys have done their homework too. So it's not a secret that our team, our best player is Nicholas Rideout. In 2017 he was the most outstanding player in the city. Arguably one of the best, if not top 2 or 3 players I've ever coached in terms of his athletic ability. Just an outstanding player, an outstanding kid. Great competitor, a kid who hates to lose. He's our quarterback. He's a dual threat. That's not a secret for anybody. He can throw the ball very well. He can run it very well. He's got great command of our offense. He also plays a ton of defense, and he kicks and he punts for us. So he's a key guy for us. On the offensive line, we got Gio Bagnerol, who's last year was a first-team All-Star. He's a big, strong kid. This year, we've increased his role in the sense that he gets to play a lot more on defense, and throughout the season, he's just gotten better and better on defense. And last week was really. We always knew him, Connor McLean, one of our linebackers. Here's a guy who no one outside of our program really knew who he was, but holy cow, this kid has been playing outstanding football for us for 3 years, and And he was the most valuable player last week of our championship because of the impact he had on that game.
And that's sometimes with kids you don't expect to step up are the ones that do step up, right?
Absolutely. And he's one of those guys. He's an undersized linebacker. Probably in most other schools he'd be playing defensive halfback, and I don't know if he'd be as successful as a defensive halfback as he is as a linebacker. But he's a guy, his motor doesn't stop, and he's aggressive, and he's 180 pounds, but if he hits you, you feel those 180 pounds.
And that's huge when it comes to senior football, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just he's a physical presence. You wouldn't know it looking at him, but once he's on the field, everyone knows who he was.
And going into the NOSSA final this weekend here in the Soo it also helps. I say that extra man is the crowd, and you say that hostile environment. As a coach, you try to help prepare your players for that.
Oh, we have the conversations. What we try to do is get our kids to just stay in the moment, focus on the game, focus on their assignments. This won't be the first time this year that we've played a game at an opposing school. We had a game at St. Charles during the school day, so it was a good situation to prepare us. We know it's probably going to be like that game, but a little bit more intense. But our group of guys are very good at focusing on what they have to do, the task at hand. And
this is a little bit away from NOSSA and not trying to play political, but just asking your opinion. I've asked Tom the same thing. I know it's in the States, but in Utah this last week, a coach caught their players cyberbullying and skipping school, and he suspended the whole team that the whole week to prove to him that he should be back on the roster. As a coach, is that something that is good to do, or something?
Oh, he suspended the whole team, or just the one player?
80 players.
Wow, that's impressive.
And for you guys, 80 players would be your junior and your senior program.
Yeah, the whole school.
Exactly, but coming from a coach, and not trying to get you in trouble, but just your opinion.
You know what? It's as a football player, you have a certain amount of responsibility, and whether you like it or not, people in the community will look up to you, and you can't take that for granted. So I think that's a great way to go about it. Those kids have to. It's a privilege to play football. And you can't take that for granted. So I commend the coach who did that.
And unfortunately, I used there in Utah, they suspended him for what he did. But again, when it comes to politics, to me, he stepped up and he believed in what he did, right?
Yeah, and sometimes those are hard decisions to make, and sometimes the easy decision isn't always the one that's going to come out. That's you.
And one of the last questions is, and we talking about it, not asking secrets, but when your guys walk out there to center to the referees for the coin flip, what do you want, and what's the reason for it?
You know what, we want to go and compete. That's what I've asked from our team every game is let's go out, let's compete. You take it one play at a time. You have a good play, pat yourself on the back very quickly, and then you got to focus on the next one. Hey, you have a bad play, get over it because the next play's coming. And compete one play at a time, control the things you can control, and play to your abilities. That's as a coach, that's all you can ask from your players. And that's all we're going to push for with our guys.
And when it comes to, like, say, the coin flip, does it catching or receiving? Does it depend on the weather, or does it depend on your style of play? How do you decide that as a coach?
That's a good question. You know what? That game by game, and again, Randy Pascal should have warned you that kind of stuff. I don't really get too much into detail.
And that's understandable. And I know when I get Tom on camera, it's going to be the same as certain things, not secrets, but certain things as a coach, you just don't want to reveal until you go out there. Now, the one thing I talked to a couple of players standing on the sidelines last week, and they were from the other high schools. Now, do your guys find a little different playing with 3 down compared to 4?
You know what? Last year it was a big transition. This year it was. I felt that our group was much more prepared for it. Like I said, the first year, just as a coach, it was a huge transition. And fortunately, I played a little bit or coached a little bit over the summer to experience it. But to get the kids to realize that, hey, like the game happens fast, you're on and off the field very quickly, and it's the game. You know, you could be up or down 21 points. A game can turn on very quickly just because of the way momentum flows and 3 down ball. I think our guys really understood it a lot more this year compared to last year.
And for me, I'm saying I'm a football fan. I know football, but did they change that because of being the Canadian Football League so that it's the same across the board? Is that why they did that, you think?
That was, I know the reason I voted for it at our league meeting was, at the end of the day, you know, I live in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. Our fields are built Canadian dimensions, and you know, I may prefer the NFL game, the NFL field. We're in Canada, so that's the game that I feel that we should be playing.
And again, we wear a Canadian flag, and we should wear it proud, and that's something for our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to the parents and, like I said, their beliefs compared to coaches' beliefs, is everybody's going pro. But the thing is realistically, how many? And for us, it's usually OUA.
Yeah.
And if we, as a coach, if you can get them to your OUA, you've done your job, right?
Oh God, I wouldn't even say that. For me, oftentimes I'm happy if a kid graduates. I'm happy if the kid is successful after football. You know, I think this was my 11th year at Lively, and I've had one player play CIS football and tough it out and make a career of it. I've had several of them go and play, but you know, they didn't last more than a year, and that's it. Like so OUA CIS is not, to me, is not the end all be all. It's not the target. It's to be good people, to be hardworking people, and to be successful in school and beyond school.
And going back, no matter what sport it is, in coaching and I use it's the kids don't realize it right now, but 10 years from now, you'll be walking down the street or in the mall and they go, Coach Bonin, how are you? And if that's what they remember 10 years from now or 5 years from now, you've done your job.
And I love to ask them, how are you doing? What are you doing now? And I love to hear, you know, I'm working here, I'm doing this, I'm married now. Like that's what I look forward to.
And that, again, going back to doing your job, and that, as a coach, it's something kids that might not realize it right now. My kids are 20 and 24, so they're starting to realize age-wise now. But in that 2-3 years changes the whole perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, like that. I like to tell the kids here, you have your whole life to work. You have 6 to 8 weeks to play football in a season. You know, that's it. That's all you have is a high school football season is on a good season. You're playing 10, 11, 12 weeks. That's it. So it's easy you know, it's easy to encourage kids to play football when you put in that context that, hey, you've got 50 years.
I think he froze. Just give us 1 second. Reg, you still there? I apologize, people. I think Reg froze. It's something that we do deal with technology. So it's something that we will work on, and we'll get an interview with him after the game on Friday. So I can't thank Reg enough, and to do with the Hawks against Korah on Friday. Thank you very much, Reg, and we'll talk soon. How are you this evening, Tom?
Doing great, Jay.
I say sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries. No Facebook account here, but I sorted it out.
So, and then again, Facebook, being a teacher and being a coach, a lot of times you don't want it, right?
Very true. Very true.
So just give me a minute. I'm just going to introduce you, and then we'll go into the questions, and we'll talk about NOSSA.
Sounds good.
We are here with Tom Annett, Korah senior coach in Sault Ste. Marie. We're heading into the Saturday, November 3rd, NOSSA against Lively Hawks, and we're just on with Reg Bonin. Now we're going to just talk to Tom about the same questions. Tom, the first thing is going in. I just got off with Reg, and he says coming in Sault Ste. Marie, he feels like it's going to be a hostile environment. And I told him, playing Korah, you're coming into a hostile environment. Is that true?
We've got great fan support, and Sault Ste. Marie definitely helps. I like to think we have very respectful fans. I truly believe that. But yeah, they are very supportive, and they're going to be loud, and I think it's going to help our squad for sure.
And that's a question I asked near the end, but I'll ask you first, is about coming into town. Is that a benefit for you to be playing on the home field compared to the visiting field if you were to head to Lively?
I think it definitely helps. Just all the hassle that comes with travel, just other added things on a coach's plate, and the players too getting out of a routine. We dealt with some of that last year. But yeah, it's always great to be at home, and having our fans is obviously a huge benefit.
Now, and we talked about the fans, and now does the fans add almost like an extra player onto the field when you're playing in front of a hometown crowd?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it equates to that much of an advantage, but it certainly helps. It certainly helps, and just little things. If there's weather issues, they're close to home. It's, someone forgets something, which almost always happens with high school kids. You're a little closer to the school. These little issues always come up when you're on the road. We deal with all the time with Sabercats too, where they're traveling at least minimum 4 times. And those are long road trips. So we definitely prefer home if we have a choice.
And I had asked Coach Bonin, now, going into this weekend, what's it going to take for you guys to hoist that NOSSA trophy to, like say, advance to offset this year?
Well, this one's a semi, so this is step 1, and all of our attention is focused on this game. The kids got to keep improving each week in practice, and just keep playing tough and doing what we do and what we've been doing all year.
And the one question I have is, like, say, being an outsider, what is TPW?
That's our team credo. It stands for Tough People Win. And we've been using that for about 3 years now. We are intentional about it. And, it's kind of, I understand from an outsider, it may seem in your face, but it's really more than about the scoreboard winning. So we try and teach a lot of lessons through that, life lessons. To the kids, but ultimately it's toughness, mental toughness, and being resilient, and that's the message we're trying to get across to our players, and they've been really responsive to that credo, and we're going to stick with it, and our players really believe in it.
Now, for your players and as coaches, going back-to-back city champions, does that add a little bit of more pressure on you guys being back-to-back city champions going in, or does that help because they've had a little bit of experience going into the semifinal for NOSSA? Sorry.
Well, I think the experience is great. It's definitely going to help our guys. We have some players. Well, almost everyone on our roster has played in some sort of championship football game, whether that was in junior or in senior last year. So, experience is always a great thing, and we're going to lean heavy on our senior leaders and our team captains going into this game.
And when it comes to the game this weekend, what I know, like you said, tough people win. And what do you expect from your players this weekend going into the NOSSA semifinal?
Well, I mean, our players have stepped up and responded well every time we've given them a challenge, and they responded to some adversity throughout the season too. And we don't expect anything different going into this game. So I think we're gonna keep getting better this week in practice, and hopefully we continue to peak and get better and better every time we step on the field.
And I had talked to and did an interview with Jordan Robinson, right, your QB, after last game, and I asked him about his relationship with Tyler Brecken and himself, and he said best friends, and it just helps so much. As a coach, what do you see in that combination, and why is it working so well?
Well, they're both very gifted athletes, so I mean that's the main thing. But yeah, that friendship obviously helps. I think we have a really close team, a lot of athletes, not just Jordan and Tyler. Um, Jordan has completed a lot of passes to multiple receivers, but yeah, we work on it hard in practice, and they get a lot of reps. And as the season goes on, they get more comfortable with their timing and their connection. And like I said, I hope we just continue to improve and peak each week we come out. So,
And when I asked the same question with Coach Bonin, is as a coach and like say as a teacher, you're dealing with students every day, but how do you deal with the kids that the school's the main concern, and then I don't know if it's a girlfriend or boyfriend first before a job, and then they also have football. How do you deal with that as a coach to keep their mindset on all that, plus going into the NOSSA semifinals on Saturday?
well, it's always a challenge dealing with teenagers. There's no doubt, but we rely on our team culture, I think, and our leadership and our veterans. I think we have a really positive school culture now and team culture, and the kids are hungry for this. They know it's important, and that's communicated throughout the team. From the coaches, but it's really more important when it comes from the players. So, the kids know how important this is, and this is an incredible opportunity for them, and they're not going to take anything for granted. So, yeah, we're all in here.
And when I talked to Coach Bond about Sudbury has the little pockets, or every school has their area compared to Sault Ste. Marie being a little bit closer. And if we go to a bigger city, you can go and watch a game as a coach to see what's going on and what's happening. A little bit with game film, it does help. But how do you prepare your team for a team that you haven't seen throughout the season?
That's always a challenge. We are familiar with a few of their players. We got to see some in the summer with the OFC Gladiators traveling here. And I actually, last year, I went down to watch the NOSSA Semi between Lively and West Ferris. So I got to see them play last year as well. So, I mean, things change year to year, but we have at least a little bit of an idea of the kind of stuff they do and some of their athletes. But we're always prepared to make adjustments in game. We've done that. Even with local opponents, sometimes they'll show something and you'll see a completely different defensive front the next week. So we've got an excellent group of coaches on our staff, and they do a really good job of making in-game adjustments. So, we'll see how it goes. And if they're showing something we haven't seen or weren't expecting, we'll adjust. We'll be fine.
And as a coach, does it help when it comes to having a team that's been unbeaten all season? Or is it a little bit more you got to rein them in a little bit because they haven't been beaten yet this season?
That's a good question. I don't think our guys are really taking that for granted. I mean, we've had some really close games locally. And I think we have an extremely competitive local loop, which definitely helps. So, I don't think it's do or die time now anyway in playoffs. It wouldn't matter at this time of year if we were 3-3, 6-0. You got to win to move on. So I don't think that's really I don't think that makes a difference either way for our players. They know the significance of this game and what they got to do to be successful.
And as a high school coach overall, and you've done the different levels, how does our Semi Minor program help the high school programs?
Incredible. I got my first experience coaching Semi Minor, not this summer, but the summer before. I coached my nephew in the grade 3-4s, and I knew it was a great system. But being involved, I really grew a much greater appreciation for all the work those guys do. And it's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Getting kids with some football experience and learning some fundamentals before getting them in grade 9. Really helps, really helps. Now, we get a lot of kids that haven't played before, and I don't think that's a huge deal. You can still be a really successful high school football player without playing Sioux Minor. And Tyler Breakin's one example. But, he's played a lot of sports. He's very athletic before he came in. But it does help. But the fundamentals, I think, is the biggest thing, and it allows you to maybe get a little more advanced, maybe in some schematics earlier on than maybe you could in the past before there's the Sioux Minor program. So I can't say enough about the great work those guys do. It's really helped local football since that came about.
And when it comes to your program, like say coming into Saturday, is there? And I asked Coach Bonin the same thing, and not to give secrets away, but is there 3 key players that you will rely on a little bit more than others going into the semifinal on Saturday?
I wouldn't say rely on more than others. I mean, we need all of our players. Another one of our kind of mantras is every player, every play. Everyone has to do their job. We've had some standout players, there's no doubt, and we expect the same from them. But no, I wouldn't say we're going to necessarily lean on one player more than the other. In fact, I think one of the things that makes our offense so good is that we have so many weapons and we distribute the ball. We're not one-dimensional at all. If teams try to take away one thing, it will open up another. And we're just very blessed to have some extremely gifted athletes this year that we can do that.
And I was the question I asked, and he wouldn't tell me, and I don't think he'll tell me either, is when your players walk out there to the center for the coin flip on Saturday, would you rather catch or receive, or you're not going to tell me?
Well, I mean, it depends on so many things. Generally, the weather is kind of what impacts that decision. If there's a really windy that day or bad weather, that could change what we're doing. So I can't necessarily tell you one way or another right now. All things equal, I'd say would take the ball if it was beautiful, clear sky, no wind day. But a lot of things can happen. So the answer is I don't know right now. Right? There's a lot of factors at play leading in.
And that's exactly, we're talking to Coach Bonin. He says he has a lot of his veterans that were up here. I call it the Ice Bowl 3 or 4 years ago with the juniors. So, and we were talking about weather. So he says, even Sudbury, you don't know. Weatherman has the best job in the world because if you get it wrong, you still have a job. But you don't know until the kickoff time, right?
Right. Yeah. Especially Northern Ontario this time of year. It could be clear skies one moment, and then you're getting pelted in the head with hail a few minutes later. So, you never know.
Now, playoffs is a totally different animal. But what has impressed you most so far going into the semifinal this year with your team?
I think how close they're getting. It's a really tight knit group. I think they trust each other. There's they do a lot of stuff outside the team too, bonding activities. So I think the closeness of our group. I knew they were a close group, but I'm impressed with it. Same with our leadership. I'll talk to our teams too. If I'm talking to you guys about going to class and behaving, that's less time we're spending on football. And in a high school setting on a football team, there's always going to be some issues, but there doesn't seem to be nearly as many this year, which is definitely a positive. So, I mean, we just got a great group of kids who are tough and like to work hard. And I guess I'd say that's probably what's impressed me the most is just how close-knit a group they are.
And I've known you for long enough now, and it's something you'll never toot your own horn, and we know that with yourself and as a coach. But Jamie Antonello, your junior coach, as like I say, he gave you so much credit for help building this program to where it's at. And like I say, the junior team's competing with you guys on Saturday against St. Charles. What's it saying about the core program overall with the success you guys have had?
Well, I think we're doing a lot of good things, but the number one thing is we're getting great athletes here. It's hard to be successful if you don't have great athletes. And I think it's bigger than just the football program. It's the entire Korah school and the culture that we've developed there. And I think that starts with our principal, Mr. Ayako, where, I think we had our highest enrollment numbers at Korah this year ever, with over 250 grade 9s. So there's a lot of great things happening at Korah beyond the football program. I mean, football is doing great things, but whether it's the arts, other sports, all kinds of clubs, and just a great staff too. So people are choosing to come there. It's a very welcoming environment. So yes, athletes number one. Now that aside, I think we have tremendous support from our administration. Again, Mr. Iacco and our vice principals, they are very supportive of athletics. They go to almost all the games. Having that as a high school coach is a dream. It's very difficult to progress and advance your team if you're not getting full support from administration, and we're getting that. And I think in turn, Mr. Iacco knows, and I've heard him say, athletics are the lifeline of any school. So, as the teams get stronger, so too does the school. I truly believe that, and I think we've, mutually benefited, our team and the school, from our program success. So athletes, administrative support, great coaches too, with Jamie and Marco Bernabucci and multiple other coaches, too many to name, have done with our junior program is incredible. So we're getting good kids, but they're teaching them excellent football fundamentals. And by the time they get to senior, it's sometimes it's pretty hard to screw it up. So there's some well trained athletes with a lot of abilities. And another thing I'd point out is our strength and conditioning program at Korah, which I think is second to none. Our players put in a ton of work in the off season. We had our best strength and conditioning participation numbers this off season that we've ever had, and it shows on the field. Our guys are packing a lot of muscle mass. They're strong. They're fast. One of the most overlooked things is it reduces the number of injuries. We've had very few serious injuries this year, and I think that has a lot to do with our strength and conditioning program. Add to that, Matt Klebus is our medical professional on our sidelines, and he does a lot of work with the kids as well. I mean, we're very fortunate. We're one of the few schools to have him, and in the junior program, it's Cam Coulter. These guys are volunteering their time to our program, which is incredible, and they just go so above and beyond. I can't say enough about what they do. Not just treating injuries, but they do a lot of preventative work and screening. You're at risk of this injury. Here's what you need to do to prevent this from happening. I mean, it's really next level stuff. And every year it just keeps getting better and better. So there's so many good people in place now in our program that, have their role and they are buying into it. And I think it's starting to pay off. So I don't know if that answered your question. It takes a village though. And we are, again, very fortunate to have number one athletes and support from so many people. And I think that's why you're really seeing us gain momentum and trending upward continuously.
And now, Matt Klebus, is that Northern Chiropractic?
Yes. He also does a lot of work with many local teams. We're fortunate to be one of those. But yeah, I think he works with, he does work with the Sabercats too. I think his practice does some work with the Sioux Greyhounds as well, and several other teams, multiple teams. So he's excellent, and I can't say enough about him. Cutting edge stuff, stays current with all the latest research. He's the man. We're blessed to have him on our sidelines.
And when you mentioned going from back to facing the Hawks on Saturday, is you had over 250 grade nines when it comes to school overall, and Lively Schools 260 odd total is something like Coach Bonin said. So it's something that's challenging from both ends, with number of kids wanting to play for you compared to they almost got to take every player that's willing to come. So it's something, you're both at ends of the spectrum, but as coaches, it works out to be the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I can't say enough about the program they've run there either. What they've done with that small school population is incredible. So I have the utmost respect for their coaches and their entire program, and I know they've been really successful for a few years now. So they're doing a lot of great things there too. At Korah, like you said, though, we don't turn anyone down either. That's one of the best things I think about football is if you want to play, we'll find a place for you in our program. We don't make any cuts at the junior or senior level ever. And, that is the best thing about football. It's, basketball, you kind of got to be either tall or super quick. It helps to be those things in football, don't get me wrong, but we will find a spot for you if you want to be in our program. And I think that's why football is so great.
And going back to you guys being 6-0, and is not against the program at all, but I guess the benefit is when you were that successful this year, sometimes the third and fourth stringers don't get to see a lot of field time because if you're a team you're fighting every game, where you guys got all your players in this year because of being a successful season.
Yeah, I mean, always you want to play as many players as you can. We did have a lot of very close games though this year. There was times when some guys maybe didn't get as much playing time as our staff would like, but we always stress to those players that their role is just as important as the starting QB, for example, and that's part of our culture. And I think our captains and leaders really do a good job of letting every player on our team know that their role is important. We try and stress that as coaches as well. And I know that can be difficult sometimes for a kid in high school and this generation too, where they just want, instant gratification. I want to play right now. But I think a lot of lessons are learned that way, where you put in your time, you develop, and if you stick with the program, keep getting better, it's going to pay off. And another one, I know we got a lot of these little messages or mottos, but one we constantly tell our kids is doesn't matter, get better. And that's always the answer. Whether we're 6-0, won a city championship, doesn't matter, get better. You're not playing because there's a guy in your position who's pretty good and getting most of the reps. Doesn't matter, get better. That's always the answer, and that's just one of those life lessons that we try and teach our kids that hopefully pays off beyond high school football. And really that's what it's about. We're just trying to make better people here more than anything.
Well, and that's exactly, and I said to Coach Bonin, and I've said years past, when it comes to coaching, it doesn't matter what sport it is. 5-10 years from now, you could be walking Station Mall, like you say, in the mall with the family or at a restaurant, and somebody comes up and says, Coach Annett, I can't thank you enough for what you did for me 5 years ago. A lot of times they don't recognize that now, but they realize it down the line. And as a coach, that's just a little bit of gratification saying you did something right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's I had this discussion not too long ago with someone else, and it's almost like you have to be coaching for at least a decade to where you start seeing these former players, now start their careers and their families. And, when they come back, it's special, and sharing some of those memories and seeing those people now be successful in other areas, whether that's their career or their families, that's really the most rewarding part about it. And that's one of the best things about coaching, without a doubt.
And I had asked Coach Bonin, also being the first guest, did you change your coaching style a little bit going from 4 to 3 downs?
Yeah, schematically we did a few things different. Absolutely. I mean, we were very 4-down offense last year, and I think it although I think we played a good game last year in the NOSSA finals, it did create a few problems with that style of play, but we adapted. We kept a few things the same, but we definitely made some schematic changes, and we've got an excellent coaching staff, and I think playing in the OFC, a lot of our coaches coach in that league that's 3 downs, so getting some experience there as well has paid off.
And when it comes to, like I say, paying off about the different things and being successful, when it comes to Saturday, how do you say it? I asked you about being impressed, but as a coach, what's going to take you to that final level and to the head to OFSA?
Well, again, we're going to rely on our program's culture, our leadership, and we have core values too that are really important to our program that we preach constantly. They're commitment, compete, toughness, teamwork, and family. And a lot of our life lessons are taught through those core values. So, we're going to rely on those to really get us past to that next level, or to become what we like to say an elite program. I think we're very good now. If we want to become elite, that's going to be the difference. And something else we tell our players is culture defeats strategy. The X's and O's are great, and I think we got a great staff that does a good job with that. But and players are obviously the most important thing. We've got some good players, but really it's going to come down to, what's your team culture, toughness, sticking together, being resilient because things aren't always going to go right, and being able to bounce back. I think that's critical for any program success in any sport, really.
And now that the Hawks think they're coming into a hostile environment, I have a feeling that the Colts fans and like I say, they're vocal, but they're not rowdy. They're not intimidating, but coming into I think it will be the Hawks coming in now, and the crowd watching this it will be a little bit more of a hostile environment Saturday for the Hawks coming in to face the Colts, don't you?
Yeah, like I said, home field advantage is great, and we love our fans, and they're extremely supportive. But they're very respectful too. I don't think you're going to see anyone do anything. That's just, again, it's our culture that comes from the parents and that we have in our program too, in our school. So I think you're going to see very supportive fans cheering loudly. Don't get me wrong. Everything going to support us, but I think it's going to be all positive all the way.
Well, Tom, I can't thank you enough, and hopefully we can do a post-game interview on Saturday, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much, Jay. Thanks for supporting high school football.
Thank you.
Take care.
Just waiting for Reg to come back. He's no longer frozen. Reg, you still there?
Yeah, I am. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. The disadvantages of technology.
Absolutely.
So we just got off with Tom, and like he said, it's not really a hostile environment. It's just going to be a nice, loud, supportive group coming into Sault Ste. Marie.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And is there many Hawk fans coming up for the game? Do you know?
I don't know for sure. I do know in the past, we travel well. What we might not do in numbers, they'll make up in noise. But typically, even when we're playing some of the bigger schools in town, our seating, our fan section is usually quite full.
And being 3.5 hours away, are you making it a day trip, or are you coming up the night before?
It's 4:00 start, so we're going to come up the morning of. And
it's something. It's not that far of a drive.
No,
depending on the bus driver,
exactly.
Between 3 and 4 hours, right? And weather, of course, along that North Shore.
Absolutely.
So it's something I said to Tom is I can't thank you enough, and hopefully we can do a post game interview on Saturday, and we'll meet face to face and talk then.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. This is a fantastic initiative, and keep it up.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough, and we'll talk Saturday, and good luck at the semifinal NOSSA against the Korah Colts.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Just to round out our show, I'd really like to thank our sponsor, Cheryl Ann Robinson of Expedia Cruise Ship Center of Sault Ste. Marie, for all your travel and destination needs. Reach out to Cheryl Ann Robinson. She will be at the game. She's grandmother of Jordan Robinson Wright of the senior team, but Cheryl's always willing to help anybody when it comes to travel or sports teams. Cheryl Ann, the Expedia Cruise Ship Center is located on Northern Avenue, and hopefully everybody can come out and check the game out on Saturday at 1:00 for the juniors against the St. Charles Cardinals, and 4:00 against the Lively Colts. And please subscribe down below so that you can get our weekly show. We'll be weekly 7:00 every Monday Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.